Yeah.
All right. It's showing the Trello.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll share this with everybody. Once the class is over. But so I've created a checklist for myself and my team. And it shows you everything that you should be doing before an open house, during the open house, after the open house. So everything is, you don't forget anything. This is very important, especially if you are doing an open house. You want to make sure that you are maximizing your time as much as possible. Through my experiences of doing open houses, they have been very successful. Almost every single time that I do an open house, I do end up getting a client out of it, whether it's a seller or whether it's a buyer. So first things first, I will say it, even though many people may think it's common, is, hold on one second, setting a little break here. So dress to impress is super important. When you're at the open house, make sure that you're dressed up and you have everything prepared. Do not wait for the last minute and do it the day before or the day of. Make sure that you have everything ready the day before and that you're reviewing everything through this checklist. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to ask everybody, since, well, let's figure it out. What are some of the things that you think you need to do before the open house?
I would have the MLS sheets printed out and also having a listing presentation ready just in case a buyer comes in that needs to sell before they buy.
Okay, great. What else would you do before an open house?
Balloons, signs. I would door knock.
Signs.
Yep, I'll get
Great.
there about an hour early to door knock the neighbors and let them know there's an open house coming by. Maybe they have family members that want to move to the area.
Door knocking is really, really important. And it's one of the biggest things that we need to do in order to let people know, and also potentially other people that might want to sell. Because what happens is, especially if you're in like a complex or in a neighborhood, what you'll start to see is that the second that your sign goes into the property and they see open houses or they see people coming, what happens is people get the idea of them wanting to sell. So they say, whoa, if this person is listing their house for this price, I should list my house. So it's very important that you're going and you're door knocking and you bring a flyer with you, and that flyer will explain and invite them to the open house. It is the softest and most easiest way to knock on door, to do door knocking, because you're inviting them to something. So you just so another thing is, you always should have some kind of like coffee or like some type of treat or something simple, and just say, hey, why don't you stop by for a cup of coffee? I'm hosting the open house at 123 Main Street, and here's the information. Please come stop by. And you got to give yourself at least a few hours before, because you should be prepping for the open house. So really, if you're doing an open house from 1 to 4, in my opinion, you should probably be door knocking by 11 o'clock, go around, knock on the doors, go back to the house around 12, set everything up, get everything ready, and then have your house ready. So it's very important. I'm going to pull up the list. You need to make sure, if you're hosting an open house, ask the listing agent how you gain access to the open house. Bring an iPad or a laptop with you. We are living in 2022, not 1990s, where you should be signing, people should be signing in on pen and paper. when you sign in on pen and paper, the problem is that people are going to misspell or write it incorrectly, or you won't be able to read the handwriting. Yes, Anthony, go ahead. You have a question.
Yeah, question. Going back to the door knocking, are you handing out like the MLS sheet or are you making a separate
I
flyer?
have a separate sheet that we use, and that is we have a flyer that's like an open house flyer. I could actually probably share it just so you guys can see.
That'll be great.
Let me pull it up here so you see it. You can see my screen. Tell me if you can. Here's one, Anthony, that you did. This is the one that I would hand out during the door knocking because it's very specific. It says open house on it. It has the day and the time, it has the address, has the price, has the beds in the bath, and has a few photos and the description, and it has the contact information of the agent doing the hosting of the open house. That's what's important. And it's a beautiful flyer. This is a perfect flyer that you should be handing out for your open houses when you're door knocking.
That's genius. Thank you.
Yep. So let's go back to the list here. Okay. Bring the iPad. Use a system that you can log in through the iPad so you can register the leads. You want to make sure you gather, obviously, your open house signs. Now, don't assume, now, I'm not trying to complicate or make things too difficult, but don't assume you can put open house signs anywhere on any town and any property. Some towns do not allow open house signs. Okay? They will take them from you. Okay? Make sure you let the owner know to hide all valuables and medicine. There's going to be people going in and out of the house. Okay? Update the MLS to indicate, to make sure. Trust me, I've had agents, even on my own team, assume that the open house was registered on the MLS. They go do the open house and they go, nobody showed up. I go, really? That's weird. I wonder why. I go and look and I see that the open house wasn't put onto the MLS, so it didn't syndicate to Zillow, Realtor.com, and all the third-party websites. So that is actually very important. This list that I created will help you to make sure that everything is going smooth. Have a listing presentation. Why do you think you should have a listing presentation? Anybody besides Anthony? Michael, Andreas, Eva, anybody? Oscar, go ahead. Thank you. Unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm assuming because if the homeowners around the neighborhood go and see the house, or you already did the door knocking, maybe they want to list the house. That way, you have a listing presentation, you present it to them, and get a listing right there.
You have a marketing presentation ready. You have it on display. It also makes your setup look very beautiful, and you have a lot of information. You have to keep the mindset of that. When somebody's coming to your open house, they're not only buyers. They could be sellers. They could be the neighbors after you did your door knocking. So if they see that you have a listing presentation or you have nice material on display, you are prepared to go over that presentation with them. Maybe not during the open house, but maybe after. They say, hey, why don't you come over? It's happened to me multiple times. So it's very good to be prepared. And they know, like, this is a great agent. This is the agent that I want to help sell. I want to hire for them to sell my house. So having that presentation with you at all times, you should always have a marketing presentation ready. Have a printed copy of the seller's disclosure. Go ahead, Oscar. You have another question?
Yes. Door knocking, I'm assuming it's legal because you're not soliciting. You're just inviting them to the open house, right?
Yes. Door knocking in the state of New Jersey is legal. Okay. Unless the house is gated. You cannot enter to the property, and you cannot open up a mailbox in the state of New Jersey. You can knock and you can leave something at the door and you can hang it. That's it. And this is a way better way. This is a way better system to door knock at an open house because think about it. If you're door knocking at an open house, you're inviting them to something. It's very soft. You say, hey, I just want to let you know that this property is for sale right next door to you. And I'm just inviting you. Why don't you come over and have a cup of coffee with me? Right? That's it. Like most people are going to say yes. Go ahead, Anthony.
Do you recommend partnering with like a mortgage lender and having a flyer printed out with, if you put down this down payment, or this is what your principal and interest would be, so that way
Yes.
the affordability?
Yes, because depending on the house, right, there's different type of loan programs. You should not only have a mortgage flyer, you should have a specific flyer from your mortgage lender that you work with that explains the type of mortgage that would be probably best for this house. So let me explain. If you're doing a condo, right, or a townhouse, something that has HOA, right, there may be a minimum down payment required, or you need to get conventional loan over FHA, because not every building is FHA approved. Okay. So it's important to have the right flyers. If you're going to a house and you're doing a certain price range, there's certain loans, there's jumbo loans, right? So you got to make sure, or there's high balance loans. Like, work with your lender. Your lender needs to be competent enough to know, say, hey, I'm looking at this house. I understand what's going on. This is the type of flyer that you need for this open house. That's the one that you should have printed and at your open house, because you're selling a product. And try to get your mortgage lenders to come with you, because it's good. It's always good to have that presence. We had a listing in North Bergen, and we listed it. We brought the mortgage lender. The guy walked in the door. He ended up getting pre-approved on the spot and bought the house. We double-sided the deal. Okay? That's very important. If the mortgage lender wasn't there, we probably wouldn't have gotten the deal, or the mortgage lender wouldn't have gotten the deal either. So very important. Seller's disclosure is good to have on display if the sellers do print, if the sellers do fill one out. It's very good to have it on display, because it gives you all the information about the house. Okay, one thing, this is all before the open house. Okay, make sure, I cannot say this enough, read the MLS sheet and understand the house. Do you know how many times I've gone to open houses and I'm taking my clients and I go to another open house at another company or another agent's hosting, and I go, what are the taxes, or what is this, or what's going on with the house? They go, oh, I don't know. I'm like, how do you not know how many bedrooms, bathrooms, what's going on with the house? Like, especially if it's not your listing, like, walk through the house, get familiar with the house, and make sure you have everything, all the information, read the seller's disclosure, make sure all the documents. Like, people waste their time at open houses because they don't go and they're not prepared and they're not ready to interact with customers and people walking through the door. I have a copy of a buyer's packet that helps print out a floor plan. If it does have a floor plan, you want to make it display. You're trying to put as much stuff onto the counter, the island, or the table of the open house. You want it to be fun. You want it to have a lot of information. Okay. What else? Up to date. Make sure you have your business cards that are up to date. And print out. This is a form that I love for the open house. This is on NJMLS. You could type in any town. And you can have this on display. There's a printable flyer here. Okay. And this flyer is the town's history, town information, town website, town library, what the gas and electric is, what the water service is. It's a great information. Distance to New York City from the town. You don't know who's walking in. Population, density, number of households, average household size, households with children, medium income, population range, everything. So easy to get. So easy to get. Level of education, just everything you could possibly think of is just a great thing to have on display at the open house. You don't know if somebody's walking in from New York and they don't know anything. Like, you would be surprised how many times that's happened to me. And the beauty in that, okay, here's a trick. Here's a great trick. The more information that you have on display, when somebody walks in through the door and they say, oh my God, could you send this to me? It's happened to me. Where one of the people said, can you send me the community's form from the NJMLS? They're like, I love that. I want to look at that. And I said, yeah, you already signed in, right? They're like, yeah, I did. I'm like, so I'll send it to that email. And the person was like, okay, can you just double check to make sure the email's correct? I say, yeah, let me check. I go into the thing. I said, yep, is this your email? He's like, yeah, that's it. So now I have a follow-up because that person requested something. That's why I don't always give everything out. I just give them the property information and then like extra bonuses, like certain things I will have that I have to send to them. Okay. And we said door knocking and things like that. Okay. So very good. Anybody have any questions what you do before the open house? Everybody's good. Okay, great. Also, I mean, I don't really have to say this, but I will. Make sure you make sure all the lights are on. This is during the open house, right? So set up the open house website, blah, 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 blah. Send a welcome table, set up a welcome table, which we kind of discussed. Create an Instagram, Facebook story. Okay. So when you're doing the open house, this is during the open house, the amount of people that are coming, there's a line out the door. You're walking through, you do a Facebook and Instagram story, showcase the home. Cause like, I love when agents are like, oh, I was so bored. There was nothing going on. I mean, well, what did you do during that time that you were there? You should be promoting the house. Take a story, walk through the open house, showcase, hey, we're in the kitchen. It has beautiful quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances. The house was recently renovated in 2021. It has an open concept from the kitchen to the living room. You know, walk through, showcase that, show the open house, show the house that you're doing the open house for. Come on, stop by and say hello to me. I'll be here at 123 Main Street in Clifton, New Jersey from 1 to 4 p.m. Anthony, yes.
During the open house, do you give the tour with the customers that come in, or do you just let them roam the house and then follow up with them if they have any questions on their way?
Yeah. So during the open house, it all depends on the situation of the house. So if the house is vacant and I know that there's no valuables or there's nothing in the house, I let them be a little bit more comfortable. And what I do tell them is I say, listen, you know, take a look around. I explain everything as they walk in. I say, this is a 5-bedroom house, 3.5 baths with a finished basement. The price is this. And I also ask them, so that's a great thing. I also ask them when they come in, I say, where are you coming from? How did you find out about the open house? The reason why I ask them that is if they're driving by and they see an open house sign and they just pull in, they don't know anything about the house. If they're from New York and they say, oh, well, I saw it online. And I say, okay, so that means in my mind, they know enough about the open house. So then I say, okay, well, where are you from? Where are you coming from? Right. And they say, well, I'm coming from New York. I'll say, okay, now I have to pitch it and I have to pitch the house a different way. Right. So these are the questions that I would ask, right? If they say, oh, I'm from New Jersey or I'm from this town in New Jersey. And I say, oh, okay. So what makes you look into this town? Why are you looking into this town? What made you stop by this open house? Oh, we're looking to upgrade or we're looking to downsize. Like, these are the 3 questions that you really want to ask to get more information about them. So you know what's going on, right? So that is very important. Go ahead, Anthony.
Do you also ask them if they're working with an agent, or do you just look in the CRM when they fill out the questionnaire?
I kind of just, to me, listen, I don't ask that up front. I do ask that in the questionnaire, but there's many times where people say, yes, I'm working with someone, and they end up actually not, and then they want to work with me. So I don't really go there. I just try to be my best self, my best representation, showcase who I am. And I'm not pushy in that sense. I show them my value, what I know about the house, what I know about the town. And then when I do my follow-ups later on the next day, I follow up with them, and then I see whether or not they're working with a realtor. I don't really push them on that. I don't ask them that. If they bring it up, they bring it up. Like, for example, I'm going to give you a great example. So I was doing an open house, and there was a young couple that walked in from Brooklyn, New York, because I asked all the questions, right? And she was looking a little disappointed, and I was standing outside with her, and I said to her, hey, what's going on? You don't like the house? And she's like, yeah, it just doesn't work for us. Like, it's a little outdated. It doesn't have the layout I'm looking for. I'm like, well, what kind of layout are you looking for? She says, I really need like a separate living space for my mom. I said, well, so you need like an extended family, mother, daughter, or maybe like a nice finished basement that's not too hard to access. She's like, yes, that's exactly what I need. And I said, well, you want to be in Bergen County? She's like, yeah. Well, luckily for you, I said to her, I actually have a listing that's coming up. And that listing is pretty much identical to what you're describing and what you need. And what I did, and she goes, okay, yeah, oh my God, this is beautiful. Like, I showed her some photos of it. She's like, this is exactly what I need. And I was like, okay, great. I said, we can arrange something. It's not listed yet. And she goes, okay, I have to contact my realtor. And I wasn't even taken back by it. I said, absolutely. I said, you're working with someone? She says, yes, I am. She says, I have a real estate agent. I said, so make sure that your real estate agent contacts me. I'm not I gained a lot of respect from that real estate agent, because at the end of the day, I'm not looking to steal anybody's client. Long story short, we ended up doing the deal together, and we closed on the house, and she was super, super happy. The agent was thankful. The clients loved me. The buyers loved me. They were like, we're so blessed that we came and we met you. And you were they felt so comfortable, because they already knew that I wasn't trying to steal them. I wasn't trying to pressure them. I was actually genuinely trying to help them. But look at it. Look at this. I sold the house without even having to put it on the market. Right? So to sort of answer that question, Anthony, is like, I'm not pushy in that sense. I just genuinely, my main purpose is to help people, because you never know where that's going to go. And you might be able to really help somebody and do the right thing, and it will benefit you in some way, whether it's with the agent. I get calls from agents all the time saying, thank you so much for treating my clients so well. They really liked you. They said that you were so professional and so nice to them. And I just want to say thank you so much that you are, just a great agent that's not there to take my clients away from me. Right. I'll make sure all the lights are on. Make sure you open all the shades. Make sure you close all the toilet seats. Like you gotta, I always have like a little bit of a kit in my car. You can light candles, but be very careful, because if they're in like a low spot and the kids grab them or they knock it over, like, you're going to have a big issue, right? And also fires and things like that. So be very careful and cautious. Make sure nobody could reach the candles. It's not near anything. Or you could use like a spray, or some people will do like, it's sort of like the oils, and it makes the place smell really nice. Things like that. Like, you should have a little bit of music, something very, very, general, like no words, maybe some light music in the background, some chill house music, a little bit upbeat, whatever it is that you're trying to go for, just so it's not so awkward. It feels like a home, right? It's really important that when they're walking into the house, they can sort of envision the home for themselves. So you want to make sure that if you're doing an open house during the winter, make sure that the temperature is optimal. It should probably be around 70 degrees. Okay. You want the house to feel warm, especially if the house is vacant and things like that too. Right. Anthony, to go back to your question, when people walk into the open house, if the house is vacant, I really tend to just let them walk through the open house. So what I would do is, as example, I would let them come in. I say, listen, explain the house. I would say, I said, just feel free to walk around. If you have any questions, please let me know. But before you leave, make sure you come stop by and see me. I want to give you something. I don't tell them what it is. And then now in their mind, they're thinking like, wait, this guy's got to give us something, whatever it may be. Like, what is it? So like now I'm drawing them back to me, right? And it could be as simple as you have an app that you're going to share with them when they're looking for homes. Okay. That was one of the things I used to do. And then I used to be able to download it for them, show them how it works. And then now I got them hooked, right? And then I can try to ask them questions. What'd you think about the house and things like that? So you want to use that kind of language to draw them back to you, especially if the house is vacant and you don't want them to just leave and then you don't really interact with them, right? So that's something that I will say. If the house is not vacant, what I will do, I'll say to them, I'll just say to them, okay, I'll explain the information and I'll say, okay, I'm going to give you a tour. Now I will walk them through the house. I just explain things, I showcase things, and I keep my distance and I let them feel comfortable. If they start chatting or they're in the bedroom or they're in the bathroom or this and that, like I'm like a couple arms length away, because I want them to feel like they can conversate. And then if I feel comfortable with them and things like that, I maybe say to them, okay, you can walk around, whatever the case is. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just stand in the hallway at the top of the hallway or something like that. As long as the house doesn't have anything that's too valuable or certain things I need to worry about. But some houses that I've done is like owners will tell me, like, make sure, please, Samir, that watch this room or closet or things like that. So, it all depends on the situation. Okay. Anybody have any questions for during the open house? Good. Okay. Great. All right, I'm going to give you some more tips on this. Okay. Okay, so when you're during the open house, if you are using the lead capture from the CRM, the great thing about that is all you need to do when you're doing the lead capture is once they register, you can go in and put notes on that person. So the conversations you had. Recently during COVID and these last 2 years or so, it's been a little bit crazy to do all this. There's so many people, things like that. So what I used to do is I'll be able to take some notes of each person that walks through the door. Be like, this person has 3 kids. This person is married. This person is single. This person lives here, whatever. The reason is so when I go back to follow up with my leads, I have an instant connection and I remember. And they go, I know in the back of their mind, or some of them have said it to me before, like, wow, you have a great memory. Like, because I'm trying to associate that lead so I don't forget who they are. And then when I put my notes in right as they sign in and they leave, then I remember everything. And it's like, it's such an easy follow-up, and because I'm making a connection with them. Okay. So it's really, really important. So we're going to jump to the next step, like for after the open house. So I'm going to give you a story real quick about a situation that's happened to me. So I was doing an open house in Montville. The house was roughly around 5,700 square feet. And we had it listed. This guy walked into the door, and I was showing him around. I was explaining it was a large house. I wanted to make sure he didn't miss anything. I was taking him through the entire home. And I had a lender there. I had music playing throughout the house. I had a candle lit. I had food. I had everything you could possibly think of. All right. And this guy walked in through the door, and I walked him around the home. I was wearing a suit. I was dressed nice. I was very knowledgeable about the town, knowledgeable about the home. And as I was walking through the house and we were just finishing, he said to me, he says, "You are one of the best agents I've ever encountered," right? And he said, "I just came from 6 open houses." Okay. I was the last one on his tour. He was like just walking in. And that's why you never leave early too, because I wasn't even like, I don't close up and shut the lights or do anything until that end, like 4 o'clock hits, and then I'll start shutting the lights and do everything. Right. He walked in last minute. So, I mean, I could have just left early and say, hey, nobody was coming, because it was an expensive house. It was a big house. Right. And I stuck it out the whole time. Long story short, at the end, he goes, "You're one of the best realtors from today. I went to a few open houses. He says, you were, first of all, your presentation, what you had displayed was very good." He says, "You have a lot of knowledge and information." He's like, and he says, "And you're the best dressed," right? He literally was saying, I'm like, okay, this guy is like maybe just trying to smooth me. Who knows, right? He goes, "Please, I want to have one of your business cards," right? I gave him my business card. I followed up with him the next day, and he says, "Samir," he says, "I'm going to contact you. I have a lot of things that I'm trying to sort out right now. As soon as I get that sorted, I'm going to call you. I want to buy a house with you." Long story short, I ended up selling him a house on the same exact street. Okay. Also at that open house, I had a guy walk through who was the former mayor of the town, which I didn't know. And he was asking me all these questions. And he's like, "Oh, I saw you have the taxes lowered, this and that, blah, 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 blah." And long story short, he's like, "Well, I'm looking to sell my house. Maybe you have a buyer. Why don't you bring them on by?" I said, "Well, why don't you give me the opportunity to sell your house, and I will show you what I'm doing in order for you to achieve the price you want." Long story short, I ended up getting his house, which was $925,000 house right down the street from the same house. So that's just from an open house, right? So things, you can grow from an open house and you can get more business. You just got to make sure that you're always prepared for it. Okay. So after the open house, it's important to lock all the doors and windows, make sure everything is closed, because there was a time which I was doing an open house, and I went downstairs to the basement. It was towards the end of the open house. This is what always happens too. If you're doing like nice homes in certain towns, like you got to be cautious of this, especially the people that walk in last minute, because they do it on purpose. They're trying to, like, there's people that do this. They try to catch you off guard, and they know that you're about to like lock up, do everything, and you're like trying to leave. And they'll be like, "Oh, so sorry, we were running behind, blah, 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 blah." This has happened to me in Oakland. So I was doing the open house, and I was literally locking up. It was already past 4 o'clock. Okay. And I went to the basement, and they had the slider doors, and I know I locked it because the lights were off, and I went there first. And then these people, when I went upstairs, they were in the house. So they're like, "Oh, so sorry, we didn't see you." And they were a little strange in the way they were acting. So I was like, "Oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I was actually just wrapping up. I was going to leave. But let me get everything sorted out. I'll walk you through the house, and then we'll go back." They're like, "Okay, no problem." And the house was occupied. And when couples start separating, I say to them, like, guys, please, you need to stay with me. You need to make sure that we're all walking together. It is the owner's request, but they kept like distracting me and then like walking away separate. Like it was like I kept having to say it to them, and then that's when I kind of knew like something was a little off by them. So long story short, they end up leaving, and we went to the basement, but they never went outside. And when I went back to the house, when I went back to the basement, the door was unlocked. So, because you can enter through the basement through the sliders from the backyard. And it was weird because the owners were actually, they had another property in another state. And, sometimes people could look that up and figure that out. But long story short, luckily I caught it so don't ever rush out of a house, because if something happens, the sellers are going to be upset with you. So it's really important that you pay attention to all those things. If you're hosting an open house, make sure you call the listing agent, let them know how many people came through and what the feedback was. That's if you're hosting an open house for another agent. You should always follow up with the owner if it's your house. I don't think I should be saying that. It's kind of obvious, but people want to know. They want to know, and you can give them a more detailed update later on, but just give them a call. Hey, the open house was great. We had like 20 groups come through. Some people loved it. Some people didn't like the main street that the house was on, whatever the case may be, but make sure you're updating. And then if I do an open house on Saturday, I tend to follow up with them on Monday. If I do the open house on Sunday, I tend to follow up with them on Monday too. I just try to give them a day, especially it's on the weekend. So if you do it on Saturday, don't follow up with them on Sunday. Give them some time to breathe. Let them have their time to think about it. And then when I also call, and if I reach the voicemail, this has worked for me in the past. What I do is say, hey, this is Samir Genid from Realty One Group. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to my open house at 123 Main Street in Clifton. It was really a pleasure meeting you and your wife, Oscar. I say their name, right? And I just was calling just to see what your feedback or what your thoughts were on the house. If you were interested, or if you would like me to help you. If you don't feel this house is a right fit, please give me a call. I have plenty of other homes that we can go see, or homes that I know that are coming up on the market. And if you would like me to be your realtor or to help you, I would be happy to do so. And I hang up, and I'll also send them a text message like that. What I'm doing is I'm asking for their business. And it works, because what happens is people will call me when they call me back or they text me back. I've literally had people say, yes, we want you to help us. And like, there goes another client. And then another thing is sometimes realtors will come, and if realtors come with their clients and they're looking at the open house and they leave their business card, do not leave the business cards at the house. Take those business cards with you. Why do you think you take the business cards with you? Anybody? Hello?
Follow up and get feedback for your seller.
Yes, and you don't leave the business cards there because you don't want the seller to call or contact any of those agents. Okay. So you never leave the business cards there during an open house. You take them with you, and now, because they didn't sign in, the realtors. So since the realtors didn't sign in, you need to know what their client's feedback was on the house. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Another thing is like you could do mega open houses too. So like not only I'll wrap it up with this, but basically what happens is if you send postcards as just listed, if it's your listing, and then you do the open house and you door knock, right? They're gonna know who you are. And then, well, actually, let's take a step back. If you do send the postcards just listed, and then you do circle prospecting and say, hey, we just listed this house, we have an open house, blah, 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 blah. Here's what's going on. Give them the information. So you circle prospect area and then you door knock, like that's already 3 touches, right? So now people might even know who you are. And then even before the open house, you run a Facebook and Instagram ad of the open house. And what you do is you put the town, okay? And you could put the price of the house, but you don't give a full address and you just put open house, okay? Or you could just put the town, open house, day and time, right? And then you don't put the price and you don't put the full address, and you will get a lot of people registering. And that's a great way to generate leads. And then once you generate those leads, you can call them and also follow up with them and tell them what's going on with the open house or all the details of the open house and see if they would come. Okay. All right. That's it. Anybody have any questions before we end this? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. I appreciate your time. And we will do another class soon. Thank you.